From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
All right, welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. This is a weekly podcast, and it is about consumption. We are, of course, proud members of the You Run Podcast Network. You can find all of our old episodes, all of our new episodes, and all of our upcoming episodes, as well as all the other great shows on the You Run Podcast Network at yourunpodcast.com. With me this week is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. His name is Sean. And Sean, how are you doing today?
Hello, Mr. Jones. My bowels are not good.
Yeah, join the club, buddy. Join the club. What have you been watching while you've been clearing out your bowels?
Well, I have an upcoming episode at some point with another podcast, and we watched a bunch of 80s movies. So I'm going to talk about those because that occupied a little bit of my time. So, and I watched something not 80s related. So I'm going to start with the Italian film by Umberto Lenzi, directed by Umberto Lenzi at least, called City of the Walking Dead or Nightmare City. And this one is basically a plane flies through an irradiated zone. And when the plane lands, the people that come out, they're not zombies. Lenzi didn't want them called zombies. They're supposed to be some kind of radioactive blood drinking ghouls or something. And it looks like someone had mad diarrhea all over their faces. That's the way that you can tell that someone is a ghoul if they have dried feces on their face, or at least that's what it looks like. This, like I said,
seems fair.
Yeah, Lenzi didn't want them to be called zombies, but they are basically zombies because they can be taken out. Their craniums, I believe in the movie, they call them craniums, and projectiles to the cranium will slow these guys down. They'll stop them. It's not a good movie, but it's fun. We get some head popping goodness, lots of heads popping. Ghoul head popping. I'd call them zombies, but I'm trying to respect Lenzi's wishes. That was okay. That's, if you're in the mood for a almost zombie fun time movie, maybe you could watch that.
It's kind of like when we watched Demons and you asked me if they were zombies, and I said no because he didn't call them zombies in the movie, and that was about the best explanation I could give.
I mean, that's all you can really do, right?
Right.
So next up, I watched another 1980 movie called Prom Night. John, have you heard of this movie? Have you heard of Prom Night before?
Yeah,
I think
I have. I do. I like that movie. It's a good movie.
Yeah. So 6 years.
Our friend Randy from Scream is a big fan of that one. He goes on about it.
Oh yeah,
times.
That's right. So 6 years after the death of a young girl during a hide and seek game in an old abandoned school with lots of exposed glass and I'm sure nails that would give you some kind of tetanus or something. A girl dies. The young girl dies, and her brother and sister, 6 years later, sorry, I almost said 10 years, 6 years later, they're at the funeral, or not the funeral, geez. They're at the cemetery, like, looking at the grave and doing what you do at a grave. And then the other kids in the school that were involved, there's like 4 of them, they start getting, or five or six, whatever, 4 to 6. We'll just say 4 to 6. I don't remember exactly. They start getting these menacing phone calls that terrorize them, and then it's prom night and stuff happens. It feels like it's kind of this got brought up in the show that I recorded this for, but it comes across as almost like a discount Carrie, like you expect some things Carrie-esque to happen that don't happen. But it's an interesting movie. I didn't really I had a guess as to what the twist was, but I wasn't right. So that was kind of fun. It has Leslie Nielsen. It has Jamie Lee Curtis. It's got some other people that I don't remember off the top of my head.
Have you seen the sequel?
I haven't. Mm-mm.
I like the sequel quite a bit more. Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. It rhymes, so that's a plus. I remember right, there's like a spirit of like a former prom queen or something like that comes back and possesses someone, and chaos ensues and whatnot. And it's a sequel in name, and because there's a prom night involved, but like just so radically different from the first one. The first one's fine. Like the first one's got a lot of like, it's a good way to put this. It feels like one of those slasher movies that walked so that other slasher movies could run in a lot of ways. The second one, which 1987, so 7 years after the first one, quite a bit of time there. it feels like they were just like, let's go fucking nuts and have some fun with it. And that's kind of, at least for me, it worked. And like, I like both for very, very different reasons. And the first one's fine, but I don't have the love for it that our friend Randy does in Scream. But I can see why it would have came up if you were talking about the year 1980 for sure. It's influential. I don't know that it's great though.
Does the second one have like more supernatural elements to it? Does it feel almost like what's that movie? Night of the Demons kind of thing?
Not that fun, but
Along
more
those
so,
lines.
yes.
Ish.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last thing I'll talk about, I've somehow, I don't know how, got involved in the rabbit hole of the Revelation Road series. So Revelation Road, the beginning of the end, there's 3 movies in this series, and I guess there's a TV show that happened after. It's a Christian action film with Ray Wise, Eric Roberts, Brian Bosworth, and the wrestler Sting. And Eric Roberts is actually only in this movie for like a scene. So it must have been like, hey, drive down to this desert and film
More
this one
Bosworth.
scene. Yeah. A lot of Brian Bosworth. It's basically the story is, and the main character, I didn't even mention, he's not even one of these people. I don't know if you're outside of that Christian movie circuit, if you would even know this guy, because I didn't know who the hell he was. I didn't even write his name down. That's how little I cared. It's basically the movie's
Jesus.
about, it's about Jesus. It's a group of bikers mess with the wrong guy. And the wrong guy is a bulletproof vest salesman who was some kind of special agent that they don't really ever get into his backstory, like the secret military man. And everyone around him seems to think that he needs to learn lessons about Jesus. So these bikers kind of mess with people in the town, as you do.
This sounds utterly ridiculous.
Oh, it is. It is. So in the midst of the troubles that he's having with these bikers, the rapture occurs and all these people get sucked up, and Brian Bosworth is the leader of this biker gang and Sting's like one of his henchmen, and they don't know what the fuck's going on. Like they don't understand. And at the end of the movie, spoilers, it just ends. Like it absolutely, he like lays his head back and he closes his eyes, and it's a black screen. It says to be continued in Revelation Road 2, the something of ice and glass or whatever. The Road of Ice and Glass. I don't even know what it is. I've heard that the third movie
Are there dragons?
I don't think so. I've heard the third movie.
Fire and Ice.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. The third movie is like the Black Rider or something, and that I've heard is legit like a good bad movie. So I'm kind of just trying to get to the third one. This movie wasn't good. It wasn't awful. It's just one of those movies that's kind of boring. Like nothing really happens. There's a couple like bursts of action that happen for an action movie, like a self-professed action movie. And then you're just kind of waiting for things to happen. And people are talking about Jesus and telling you, you gotta believe in Jesus. He's the bridge and whatever. So yeah, kind of shitty, but I want to see the third movie. So I have to get there. I have to follow the steps to get there. So we'll see how it goes. I'm sure I'll be updating everyone with how the second and third one ended up soon enough.
Let it never be said you are not a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, I mean, I give everything a fair shot. John, what have you been watching?
So in the spirit of Bronson month, I started the week with a Robert Bronzy movie, 12 to Midnight, because it's kind of what our theme is around here. Yes, honestly, I had about an hour and a half to kill, and I managed to stretch this into like 4 hours of trying to watch this hour and a half movie, because that happens sometimes. Mm-hmm. But so to answer I don't know if you asked this on mic or not. I feel like it came up when we were talking with Sam about 10 to Midnight, the much, 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 much better movie than 12 to Midnight. I don't believe he's dubbed. He doesn't talk very much in the Robert Bronzy. Robert Bronzy, for those who don't know, he is Hungarian.
Were you going to say Indonesian?
I almost said Indonesian. I'm like, that's not right. Anyway, so he's essentially the Hungarian Charles Bronson is what he's going for. And at first glance, the guy looks a lot like Charles Bronson. I don't believe he's dubbed, so I'm going to answer that. He doesn't talk very much, but I don't believe he's dubbed when he does talk. And it's usually like 1 or 2 word answers for the most part. The opening scene, there's these guys like holding up a liquor store, and he walks in and, they're like, get out of here, fuck face or whatever. He just goes, beer. And they're like, oh, you want a beer? Go get a beer. And then, things happen from there. So he doesn't talk much. And the more you look at him, the more you realize, like, this guy doesn't really look that much like Charles Bronson. Like, it's, again, at a glance, like, at the right angle, sure. But, like, once the camera starts focusing on him, you're like, this looks like a Charles Bronson impersonator, not, but whatever. At some point in this, like, very, like, 2020's version of a, like, old school cop movie, werewolves show up for reasons I'm not entirely sure how or why they did, but they do. There is a whole side plot with that, which is not great. I will say this movie is, like, can I give a movie a third of hot dog out of a hot dogs? Because, like,
Do whatever you want.
it's definitely not good. It's one of those, like, you're watching this for morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
That's why you're going into this. Like, we had kind of joked around with the idea of a Robert Bronson month and looking at some of his other titles, which are all like rip-off, like, Bronson titles, basically. I think one of them is like Death Smell or some shit like that. Something with the word death in it.
Death Kiss.
Or Death Looks. Yeah, they're whatever. My suspicion is that this is going to be a lot of the same if I were to go through and, like, look at more of these films. This movie did not set the bar very high. We'll put it that way. So if we decide to do a entire Robert Bronson month, I got a feeling we're both going to be grumpy by the end of that month.
His newest movie, it has his highest, like, rating on IMDb at 8.6. I think that maybe someone's drinking
Out
the
of
Kool-Aid.
how many reviews? Like 6?
I haven't clicked into it. The one that I saw, that the other one that I was interested in of his is Escape from Death Block 13, which I'm assuming is supposed to be like The Great Escape. And
yeah,
I didn't watch it, but I just kind of skipped around it so I could see if he talked and, to see what he sounded like. And it's the same thing. I eventually found him talking, so he might talk a little bit. And that one came before 12 to Midnight. So yeah, he didn't seem like he's definitely not dubbed in that, but he didn't seem like he had the greatest grasp of the English language.
If he is being dubbed, he doesn't sound any more like Charles Bronson than if he wasn't being dubbed. The only reason I could see them dubbing him is if his English is just that bad that this is the option that they have. And
like old school.
Again,
dub everybody.
Yeah. And I don't think that's the case. I think he just, again, judging by one movie, I think they just give him short, manageable lines. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of, like, behind the scenes, like, no, that's not a word. Say it again like this. And, oh, I got it now type shit. So the making of 12 to Midnight. Yeah. So there probably is, like, friends and family or something.
Maybe.
I don't know.
It's got Rampage Jackson in it. So,
well, there are positives to everything. I also went back and watched a movie that I thought I really liked. I thought I really liked the original Stargate movie, the one from 94 with Kurt Russell and James Spader. And of course, French Stewart standing around in the sand. Because, French Stewart makes everything. Yes, squinting. So, do you have an opinion on this one? I'm sure you've seen this at some point.
I feel before you get into it, I haven't seen it I've seen it 2 or 3 times, and I haven't seen it since late 90s.
It's probably been 15 years or so for me.
And
so,
I remember thinking it was like it made good box office numbers. I remember it being
and it's spun off to, like,
TV
spun
show.
off to what, like 3 or 4 TV shows, like several TV shows.
Yeah,
because there was SG1, Atlantis. There's, like, another one, and then didn't they have, like, a prequel one that came after that? Or
I feel like there was at least
shows.
a sequel to the movie too. On top of that, I wouldn't
be surprised if there was, like, a straight to DVD one or something. But yeah, did you have so you remember at least somewhat positive opinion on it?
Mm-hmm.
Man, maybe I was just in the wrong mood for it. I don't know, but this movie just felt like there is cool stuff in it. Like, there's some cool visuals in it, especially when you're looking at it through the lens like this is from 1994. Like, you got to have a little bit of, I don't know, nostalgia or whatever for it. Man, this story is just fucking convoluted as shit. Like, it's got time travel and wormholes and Egyptian curses, but they're not Egyptians because they're on another planet, so they're aliens, but they happen to look like Egyptians, and they have just like, I don't know how you dumb this movie down and make it. I mean, I guess that's what good science fiction is like really convoluted world building where you can actually build a whole culture within it. And I'm not 100% sure that it does that. Kurt Russell's still great in it because he's Kurt Russell. James Spader is take him or leave him. I'm not really a huge fan of his.
Spades.
Yeah, pretty much. I prefer him being angry and scooping ice cream. But yeah, man, maybe it's just me, but I didn't think it held up. I went into it thinking like, man, I'm gonna like, I could see myself like, this is gonna do one of two things. It's either gonna annoy me, or it's gonna open up another rabbit hole. Like now, I want to go back and rewatch the show because I used to. I didn't watch it like religiously, but I would. It was on Sci-Fi. I'd catch it like here and there and not be necessarily mad about it and whatnot. And maybe the show got better, or maybe the show was able to flesh out those storylines better. It was a 2-hour movie, so you're not relying on this relatively condensed format in comparison. I think that was still like 20 episode seasons at that point, or something like that. But I just found myself bored. I'm like, there's a lot of sand. I do like when the like hieroglyphics come up and like start screaming and beat the shit out of people. That's kind of entertaining. But like the rest of this movie is just feels like it's just going through the motions and not in a way that I'm finding appealing at all. So yeah, I don't know why I went back and watched Stargate. I don't recommend doing it. If you have mixed or clouded memories of it like I do, you probably, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is like the most genius thing since Dune or Blade Runner, or pick your science fiction that you like, but it was not working for me. And I'm not through this whole thing yet, but there's a new series that's on FX. It's called Rise of the 49ers, and it's basically taking a look at the 49ers dynasty. It starts with essentially when they hire Bill Walsh, and the same year they draft Montana. I think they go like 2-14 or something not good that year, as a lot of teams do when they're terrible. I've only gotten through about an episode and a half, but it's good. It's going into all the detail that you want. They had a team photographer that was like, in his words, he wanted to shoot the team the way that people took photographs of the president. So he was literally everywhere. Like he'd be in the locker room, on the field, in the press conferences. There's pictures, like candid pictures of Joe Montana, like fucking with him, which are really like kind of cool and entertaining to see. So stuff like that gives a lot of different perspective. I know you personally will probably not like this. It's narrated by Tom Brady because he was a 49. I guess he grew up as a 49ers fan. I know you don't like him. I don't care for him either, but he's fine in this. For where I'm at in it, I'm looking forward to finish it. I got a feeling I'm going to get derailed quite a bit by the Olympics right now, but I was enjoying it for where I started with it. And there's, I think, 4 or 5 episodes of it. So it's worth giving. If you like football and you didn't get your fix with that shitty Super Bowl that just got played, or if you just like the 49ers or like sports stocks, it's worth giving a watch from where I'm at so far. So that's all I had this week, unless you want to talk about the Olympics and the Super Bowl. I don't think either of us really care to rehash that.
Nah.
Yay? No?
Nah.
Good. So, all right. Well, let's take a break then. Let's wrap up Bronson Month. We're going to talk about some movie that I'll probably mispronounce. Kinjite, Forbidden Subjects. Maybe I said that right. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. We're going to come back and talk about it in just a minute. Did I say it right?
I think you did. Sounded fine to me.
They say you can't go back in time, but they clearly haven't been listening. From the neon-soaked cinema of the 80s to the high-octane drama of 90s pro wrestling, this is the deep dive your inner child has been waiting for. This is Pop Culture Reflections. More than just a review show, it's an exploration of the films, music, and icons that defined a generation. Join Justin and a lineup of special guests to rediscover the stories you love. Pop Culture Reflections. Listen to them now and all the other great shows on the You Run Podcast Network at yourunpodcast.com.
We have returned. I don't know if that's a good thing this week, but we're back and we're going to be talking about Kinjite, Forbidden Subjects. This is the last movie in Bronson Month, and I'm kind of disappointed about that because we're going to have, well, I do like next month's theme too, but Bronson Month has been doing some good for the soul, I think. And then we get to this movie.
Words never said before.
This
about Charles Bronson. Good for the soul.
Yeah, this week's an interesting one. So we're going to start with our third-party review. This one comes from Dave Edwards. He is on Letterboxd. He gives this movie 3 out of 5 stars, and he says, one can never unsee Bronson pegging a baddie with a huge dildo, so he knows how the girl feels. Canon sleaze is the best sleaze.
That's true. It is.
It's true. Sean, what is Kinjite forbidden subjects? Or I guess they mean the same thing, apparently. What is this movie about?
Yeah, so for that, we go over to IMDb. It's an internet movie database, and it has things just like this movie in it, if you can find them. So to find it, I went and typed in Kinjite, forbidden subjects, and it brought up a movie from 1989. It gets an R rating. It's an hour and 37 minutes long. It gets a 5.5 out of 10 on the IMDb rating scale with 4,400 4,400 reviews, which isn't very much considering this is a 40-year-old Bronson movie. 30 years? Yeah, roughly 36 years. So
several more than that. Robert Bronzy, whatever.
Yeah. So we read this lineup at the top. We're never quite sure if it's the storyline or the plot, but they wouldn't put it on top if it wasn't supposed to be read first. It says, a brutal Los Angeles police lieutenant is determined to bust up an organization that forces underage girls into prostitution. And if we scroll on down to the storyline, it says this is care of John Saxtetter. You can email him at jsaxty@bellsouth.net.
I thought you were going to say John Saxton for a second. I was
Maybe.
like, what?
He wrote, before he died, he wrote that.
Yeah.
He wrote it. So John writes in, he says, a Tokyo businessman transferred to LA molests a teenage girl on a train. It turns out that the girl is the daughter of a vice cop. But in one of those plot twists that can only occur in the movies, the cop is assigned to find the businessman's own daughter who has been kidnapped and forced into a teen prostitution ring.
I feel like that skips about at least the first third of the movie, but that's fine. We'll get into talking about that. Before we do, Sean, who are some of the people in this wonderful film?
All right, so we'll start at the top. We have Charles Bronson, who plays Lieutenant Crow. He's obviously the subject of the month. He was in the Death Wish series. He was in The Great Escape and, of course, The Magnificent Seven, and John's favorite movie of all time, Kinjite. We have Juan Fernández, who plays Duke.
This is going to be the first time you've mentioned the movie that we're talking about in the movies that the actor is in as a bullet point.
Well,
but
it's your favorite
I'm here
movie.
for it.
So anyways, we talk. Juan Fernández plays Duke. We talked about him in Gary Busey's Bulletproof. He was in Crocodile Dundee 2. He was in Salvador and Iron Eagle 3. We have Perry Lopez, who plays Eddie Rios. He was in Chinatown. He was in The Two Jakes. He was in Death Wish 4, The Crackdown. We've got Peggy Lipton, who plays Kathleen Crow. She was in Twin Peaks, the Mod Squad TV show, and that awesome Kevin Costner movie, The Postman. And then we have a small role for Nicole Eggert, who plays Dee Dee. We talked about her in Blown Away with the Two Corys. She's best known for Charles in Charge and Baywatch.
Have you seen this one before, or is this a first watch for you?
I have only seen a few minutes of it when it was like on HBO or something during a free preview weekend or something. Like I've never sat down and watched the full thing until today.
So I know I've brought this one up before, and you can tell me I'm wrong on this because there's a couple that might challenge it, but do you think this might be the sleaziest movie that we've covered to date on this show? Because I think it's got to be in the top 3, if not top 1.
I mean, it kind of depends on your definition, but for the subject matter, it's really gritty and kind of dark subject matter. So yeah, I think it's definitely up there. Top 10, top 5, possibly top 3. If
I'd
it's
say
not the top.
Probably top. I'd say top 3. Like, to me, what comes to mind would be probably your favorite, Black Devil Doll from Hell. It's got some sleaziness to it.
Yeah.
And what else is really up there that's sleazy like this that we covered?
I'd have to look at the list.
Not sure.
We got over 200 episodes, so I'm sure there's been something that was like, ooh, this is kind of risque. But yeah, this is super sleazy. This movie is super sleazy.
Yeah. That said, there are some things that are actually kind of like in it. Like, as sleazy as this movie gets, there's a lot of things you could say about it, and we're going to say them. I'm going to start with positives because that's what we like to do. And one of the things that I find to be really great in this movie is I love that this movie opens with a good old-fashioned Charles Bronson ass kicking where he delivers a jump kick and then looks genuinely surprised that he landed on his feet. I thought that was really funny.
I think it's great the way that this scene is filmed because he's almost borderline like Steven Seagal territory now these days, where it's like
68 in this movie.
Yeah, you're
like,
not
real life. He's 68.
You're not quite sure if it's a stunt double when they're fighting, but I know there's a few shots in this first fight where he like you just see a fist like hit the guy, and a couple times the fist doesn't even hit him. He's just like an inch away, and you're like, okay,
it's like a black guy's fist. You're like, that's weird.
I'm not sure who's fighting this guy, but I'm not sure it's Charles Bronson either. So it's a fun kind of fight scene that happens, and that guy gets real beat up. And to our guest reviewers review, I don't think he like actually. I think he beats the guy. So the movie opens with a briefcase, and it's got like a tie and rubber gloves and a dildo and like Vaseline and a riding crop and some other like sexual type things. And Bronson
business
is partner.
Trip stuff.
What's that?
Business trip stuff.
Yeah, stuff that you take on business trips. Bronson breaks into the room because they see Nicole Eggert, or they see her going to the hotel and with this guy Duke, who is her pimp essentially, and they've been following Duke. Anyways, they break into the hotel room that this businessman's in, and they beat him up, and then the partner leaves with Eggy, and then Bronson grabs the dildo, and that's pretty horrifying in its own to see Charles Bronson. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. It's for jacking off, and then he grabs the dildo, and I think he beats him with it. I think that's what is supposed to have happened, but it could be almost read as if he stuffs it in his ass.
The first time I saw this, I thought he beat him with it too. After doing more like looking into this movie and then kind of thinking about how this movie ends, because not to skip too much around, we'll get to the ending like in more detail probably. His last line in this movie, he goes, "That's what justice is," as he's like walking through this prison and this guy's getting boo-fooed to hell and back. I kind of wonder if that's like the implication is that he just thinks it's like an eye for an eye type crime thing. I don't know. And that's kind of why I think like, because I saw a couple people just like reading up on this and like listening to stuff on it going into this episode that made that same comment about him, boo-fooing this guy with the dildo to start the movie. So I think it kind of is implied to start, but that line at the end and the way this movie wraps up kind of makes me feel like it's almost reinforcing his idea of justice in it is what they're going for. Whether or not you agree with that, I guess that's up to your interpretation. Not you specifically, but whoever chooses to watch this movie. But I could see it going either way.
It's his secret kink, getting guys boo-fooed.
He does have a lot of awkward smiles in this movie, which is both like good and terrifying. Like there's at least 3 or 4 shots where the camera just stays totally like framed up on him, and he's just got these awkward like shit-eating grins, which I'm all here for because I can isolate them and use them for other things. I also like that we have a hot dog assault in this movie. There's a scene where apparently, the male pimps or whatever are going to arena football games to find underage girls, which I've never been to an arena football game, but I can't imagine that there's a lot of women there at any age. And, Bronson's got this whole tray of like hot dogs, and guy comes up and says something like, "Hey, your daughter's hot," or some shit like that. And he just like smashes it in his face.
They're the poon patrol.
And then, the remnant somehow turns into like nacho cheese, or like he has if Bronson doesn't like mayonnaise, it's because he fucking loves mustard, because it is entirely on this dude's face after he assaults him with these hot dogs. But it could have been done better. There could have been more hot dog carnage. He could have, boo-fooed him with a hot dog. That would have made it even funnier. But we still get a hot dog assault. So I was here for that.
I mean, the arena football, the LA Cobras had a very diverse crowd. They just had all types, men, women, children, young girls, young boys. I don't know. But yeah, that's a great scene. I mean, how could you not appreciate Bronson smashing a hot dog, multiple hot dogs covered in yellow, not quite sure if it's cheese or mustard, and smashing it on that guy's face, and the other guy gets beat up. It's a classic scene. It was a good Bronson-ism. This is his last canon film, actually, Bronson.
Yeah, which I can kind of see why after watching this, but He was also, again, 68 when they shot this movie. So how long can you have him keep doing this kind of movie?
Well, not his last film. I mean, he did more movies after this.
That's true.
But his last
Isn't
canon.
Death with Wish 5 after this?
I think that would have been a canon film.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, he did that
How about
Santa
you? What are
Claus
some things
movie,
you
and
like?
he did, you're right, The Face of Death, which is weird. I thought that would have been canon. But there's just, I like the grittiness of the movie. I like that for what this movie is, right? It's definitely not a movie that you go into like a head scratcher, like one that you're like, oh man, I'm going to have to put my thinking cap on. There's going to be some really deep subjects here. But I like the way that the story is told, because it's told at the beginning, that first third of the movie, or maybe first half, are like these parallel stories where we have Bronson trying to get Duke and that other guy, which I can't remember his name. Is it like Levon or something? The guy that I'll get to what happens to him. But we have that story. And then we have this Japanese businessman who likes to go to hostess bars. He takes his clients out for dinner, and his wife is upset with him because he's staying out late. He's like a Japanese salaryman. He's going out all the time. And then he gets transferred to LA. So his family moves to LA, and then the Bronson's storyline is still going. And then this guy saw on a Japanese train some woman getting felt up, and he thought that she was like getting pleasure out of it. He thought she was orgasming over it, and that like turned him on. So when he goes to LA, he's on the bus. Bronson's daughter's on the bus. He starts to try and put his hand on her leg or touch the holiest of her holies, as she said, quoting her. And she screams, they run off the bus, and the guy kind of gets away, and he gets mugged like less than 100 feet from where the bus stopped. But it kind of intertwines this story, and eventually, like we read in the synopsis or whatever our person, the storyline, like his daughter goes to a Japanese school, and they're on a break, and on a class break, she separates from the pack, and Duke is like, oh, hey, he's always on the prowl looking for new girls to add to his stable. And he picks her up and takes her, and they like turn her out. And it's that part's like, it's not graphic, but it's the implication of what's going on is it's very disturbing, because this girl's like 12, maybe 11 or 12 years old, 13 at the max. So it's really just gross, like really dark, really just not what you want. Like, I have two kids, two girls. Yeah, you just not something you want to think about, you know?
Right. We haven't brought it up yet, but I think debatably the highlight of this entire movie is the scene where I think it's Duke, who he force feeds him his watch, which is kind of entertaining. We get to this point. This is pretty early in the movie. I think this might even be before the hot dog scene, or maybe it's right after the hot dog scene. It's right around there. And I'll get to my favorite part of the whole thing. So Bronson's following this guy around, and he's basically going to go try to tell him to get the fuck out of his town, is what his plan is. So he follows him around, and they get into this like playground or something, because there's like kids gym equipment or jungle gyms and whatnot around him. Parks his car. He gets in his car and pulls his gun on him. He basically starts, Bronsoning him to like tell him to go away. And the guy tries to bribe him. He tries to offer him a watch. He's like, hey, this is like $20,000 or whatever it is. And Bronson's like, you're going to eat this fucking watch. And he literally, like, it's not acted out very well. Like, I think the ideal way to do it would be maybe to like make a gummy watch that looks, or a chocolate watch or something that looks real, so you can actually have this guy eat it, or do a cut. But basically he's like rubbing this thing on this guy's face like violently for several seconds as he forces him to feed this watch. This guy starts, quote unquote, choking it down, and like, I don't know, they never get to whether or not he passed the watch. Even at the end of the movie, I'm like, I wonder if he's still carrying that watch. Like, what happened to that watch?
He saved it, and that's how he bribed his cellmate not to put it in his ass the first night.
Or maybe it came out on his cellmate's donger when he was done,
maybe.
Doing whatever.
I have a watch on my
it's
wiener.
20 grand. Right.
Cool.
This is a bizarre episode already. But so he proceeds to force feed this guy a watch. Guy comes out. He's like, fuck you, Crow, or whatever your name is in this movie, Bronson. He lights his car on fire, blows it the fuck up, and is just walking away like nothing happened. The best part of this whole sequence, better than watching him force feed this guy a watch and blowing up his car. And it's a pretty good car explosion. It flips the car and all that kind of fun stuff. They cut to the next day and he's in there with the police chief and he's like, what the fuck are you doing, Bronson? Like, you can't force feed a guy a watch and blow up his car and all this. He just goes, well, what the fuck did you expect me to do? He goes, yeah, I guess you're right. He's back on the street doing his job like normal. I'm like, oh, that's all it takes?
I don't want to get into negatives yet, but that's kind of part of my negative is, I won't get into
the
it
whole
yet.
thing or the chief? No, go ahead. Like, we can bounce back and forth. It's fine.
I want to talk about the thing.
We're here now. So
I know. The other thing that I really like about the movie is I like that in the 80s, this is late 80s, it's 89. So it's almost kind of like towards the end of this, but I like that there's like this, again, come back to social commentary. There's this whole kind of social commentary about Japanese, like the Japanese. And in the 80s, for people listening that didn't grow up in the 80s, like the Japanese economy got really strong and Japanese people started coming here. Japanese businesses started buying properties, American properties, buying, all types of stuff. And people got really fucking paranoid that Japanese they were like buying up the country. Well, then eventually the Japanese economy tanked and all that shit really didn't happen because it wasn't that strong after a while. But I like that they kind of add that in because there's a scene where Bronson pulls up to the hotel and there are all these limos and shit letting a bunch of Japanese people out. And they're dressed the women are dressed traditionally in like kimonos and stuff. The guys are in suits. And he goes on this rant about, oh, goddamn Japanese come over here. And it was just like, it's surprising in a movie.
He basically sounds like our president, but he does it like in front of a hotel at high volume.
In front of people who probably don't even know.
So I guess the difference is that he doesn't have a camera. Well, in the movie, he does have a camera on him, but he doesn't have like a television camera, like following or
national audience or whatever. But I thought it was interesting that this is some fucking sleazy Bronson movie, right? Probably one of the sleaziest Bronson movies. Although Death Wish is pretty dark too. It has some pretty dark themes, but it's not.
They did better.
It's not child prostitution.
It's a different kind of sleaze.
Yes.
Well, and they also, for all the sleaze and all the darkness that's in Death Wish, and there's no shortage, and I'm talking specifically about the first
one. Yeah.
Yeah. For all that's in there, which it absolutely is, there's so much more character development in that. There's so much more like story development in that. And I know you said you're going to bounce back to the watch and that is some negatives in there. But one of the things that I said that was kind of, I get where you're going with that. Like there's the very racist undertone. If this movie was made 5 years after this, it probably wouldn't be able to be made because of that rant that's in there. But it's kind of still in that spot where this kind of shit can fly in a movie. It kind of feels like, although this movie moves pretty well, like I don't feel like there's a pacing problem. I don't feel like that it's too long or anything like that. It moves good from scene to scene. And you already said it, like you're not going into this and putting your thinking cap on and like buckling in for like a, real head scratcher.
Yeah.
I do feel like there's maybe one too many storylines in this movie though. Like I kind of feel like at the end of the day, this could have been a sleazy cop movie where Charles Bronson's just running around LA or whatever city. I think it's LA in this movie, but or whatever. Yeah. If he's just running around LA beating the shit out of like pimps that are like turning out kids, okay, I can watch that. Now, this tries to go a little deeper, I guess, with the whole intertwining the Japanese businessman who fills up his daughter and then he has to end up saving that guy's daughter.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. I see what you're going for, but I don't know that I necessarily needed that. And to be honest, I don't know that Charles Bronson is the actor to like deliver that kind of gravity. And I don't know that Canon Films is the like production house to kind of really drive home that kind of story. It almost feels like one less storyline would have just made this a little bit tighter and easier of a movie.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it necessarily needs the whole find the businessman's girl. Find the businessman's sounds real fucked up.
Daughter.
Yeah. Find the businessman's daughter.
This is the thing.
Yeah.
It's so sleazy. It's like, how do we talk about this?
Right. It
without
just doesn't
getting like booted off of everything.
It doesn't seem like that necessarily needs to be there. And like I said, the way that it's done is just kind of, again, it's not portrayed graphically, but at the same time, it's like, I think you could just imply it. There's so many other like scenes in the movie where there's like basically anybody that's fresh in the city carrying a backpack can possibly be victimized by Duke and be turned out, male, female, indifferent. Like they don't really care. The last big like that I want to get to is that whole scene where, and I don't know if you noticed this, but the guy that's working the front desk of the hotel or the apartment condo, whatever that Duke lives in, that guy, I want to say he's the same. He's in either Murphy's Law or 10 to Midnight as another desk clerk. And I mean,
that makes sense. I didn't notice it, but that makes sense.
I couldn't find his credit. And I was like, oh, that's really funny that it's the same actor. But he goes up there. Duke gets warned by the security guard and Duke flees the coop, right? He flies the nest, whatever you want to say. So Bronson gets in with his partner and they hang the other guy. He's like not going to give him information about where Duke went. And they hang him over the balcony. They're like, you're not going to tell us? Well, fuck you. I'm going to hang you over this balcony and drop you on your head. And he's like, no, you're not. You're not going to do it. And then they do it and they hang him over and he's like, I don't know anything. I don't know anything. And they end up dropping him. Clearly a dummy, falls into the pool. And it's a black guy who gets dropped off the balcony. Clearly a white guy rises to the surface in the pool scene with all the blood around him. I'm like, this is classic canon right here. This is why I watch these movies.
And okay, so as entertaining as that scene is for all the reasons you just laid out, as well as the schlubby cop who's Bronson's partner and Bronson, who's a 68-year-old, like 5 foot tall man at this point, because people shrink, as they're like manhandling this probably like 6 foot tall, like 230 pound dude, something like that, over a balcony. I hit a point in this movie this time around. I was like, so is Bronson the hero in this movie? Because he's kind of a racist and they straight up kill a dude at one point. Like they straight up murder this guy.
That's where I'm going with my dislikes when we get there.
Well, we're there. So that's my biggest question. And this isn't even necessarily a complaint. Like, I really don't care. Like, at the end of the day, Bronson is trying to get rid of like a pimp who's like turning out kids. So, okay, I can root for you, even if you are throwing his associates over.
Oh, yeah.
But that's kind of the question. Like, is Bronson a hero in this? Like, I know he's technically a cop, but is he? Like, he doesn't play by the rules. Or he makes them up as he goes or something. Whatever trope you want to throw in there.
That's my point. Like, he is, and my biggest detraction from this movie is it almost doesn't make sense for him to be a cop because he doesn't play by any rules. He's not held responsible for when he does things that, basically police brutality where he beats people up all over town. There's no consequences.
Or murder.
Yeah, or murder.
Manslaughter, or however you want to charge
or
that.
Destroying property or whatever. Intimidation, all this shit. It's like, I guess it's like Bad Lieutenant in that way. But it almost seems like he should have just been a character. The character should have just been a vigilante. Like
it might as well.
That first day, the first thing that we see him, and he goes home to his wife and he's like, not feeling right. The job, it's really getting me down. We need to go by that tavern in Carmel and run it. And I could just imagine it'd be the best tavern to ever go to is Charlie Bronson's behind the bar. He's serving people. And his wife is just like, yeah, you're just a tough son of a bitch. And whatever you do, I trust that you're doing the right thing because you're a good man. Like all the shit. She's just like, egging him on. And again, he leaves this trail of destruction behind him with he doesn't have to explain to anybody why he did what he did, except when he talks to his commanding officer, the guy's like, hey, don't do it again. Like basically he just yells at him. And the next second, like you said, he just walks away and, Charlie has a little smirk on his face or whatever, because he's just going to go murder
the next guy,
murder somebody else for no reason. The other thing is like, this is 1989. This movie is made. Are we still calling Asian people Oriental at this point? It seems kind of a little passe for the time.
I bet that probably still flew at that point. Like, I bet a lot of people still could get away with that, but it does feel, maybe it's because we're looking at it with 2026 eyes. Like,
sure.
Obviously it feels terribly wrong now, but I think it probably did fly at that point. But to your point, you said the word vigilante and saying, why not just make him a vigilante? If you kind of couple that with my complaint about it, them trying to like intertwine this extra story about the guy who groped his daughter and then how that has to work in, if you change it so he's not a cop and he's just a vigilante and he happens to take out the same pimp, if that's how they like reintroduce those two characters or something, that almost feels like an arc that makes as much, if not more sense than this whole like cop angle that they try to force on. This is going to go back into positives a little bit here, but we didn't even talk about how this movie ends, because I do want to wrap on this before too long. I don't have a ton to add, but I forgot to mention that the third, not the prison scene, like after he catches the guy and throws him in jail, the whole like
the crane
final boss battle, the crane, the whole pier, the whole series of events that happens on this, including another body that I would feel like he's probably responsible for. That's a cop in this case because his partner dies here. Spoilers, I guess. This 40-year-old movie or something like that. Holy shit. What a sequence of events between this like wrecking ball crane thing. What it's not a wrecking ball. It's got the clamp or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a claw
coming
machine.
down.
Crane.
Yeah. Comes down, picks up his car, and all of a sudden we got 70-year-old Charlie Bronson riding a crane over like a cacophony of fire and garbage, firing randomly at people with a 6-shooter, taking out the crane operator, and just spinning around this pier for what feels like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
but
it's got to be half an hour in real time.
Yeah, and then you get to see him dive off of that into like a ball of fire and trash, just to go out and continue. Like, I love how they turned him into a superhero for the last like 30 minutes of like still a murdering superhero, but like a superhero for the last like 30 minutes of this movie out of fucking nowhere.
Thinks he's Remo Williams all of a sudden.
It's dumb, but entertaining. And that's often where I find the best things in film.
So it's funny that you bring that up as a positive, because that's I have a nitpick on that scene as my last negative is like he's shooting people randomly. It doesn't seem very bright that he shoots the crane operator, because then the thing is set in motion just to spin around. But the thing that's crazy is the crane is stationary, and all of a sudden
and he's running out of bullets as he's spinning around. I don't know what he's going to do.
The crane is stationary, but it's still spinning, and it starts spinning over different things, and it's hitting like a building, and it's hitting all this random shit. And you're like, where did this come from? And in the meantime, the main bad guy, Duke, is in his car, and he's just driving around in circles too. Like, dude, this whole scene, the whole thing in movie time, like as in if it was real, that's like a half an hour. You could have driven away. You could have just drove away, and Charlie would have been still up on that goddamn crane reloading his gun with his infinite bullets. But instead, he's just driving around in a circle, and it's like, I don't know.
It's almost like he's chasing the crane for
or they're going like counter to each other, so they can once in a while, every 10 minutes, they see each other and they wave or something.
Bang.
It's just like, I'm going to shoot at you. It's just shit's blowing up everywhere. It's a great scene in that it's entertaining, but it's a really stupid scene, as in like logistically, how does this work? You know, I still don't.
I'm not saying it's not stupid.
Yeah,
I said it was entertaining.
My negative is definitely a nitpick. I just don't even understand how he got off the crane just by like, he just kind of like skipped off of it or something, didn't he?
It's like a barrel roll or something.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, 80-year-old, 100-year-old Charlie Bronson's just doing fucking duck and roll off the fucking crane that's going 50 miles an hour in a 360, but somehow covering
20 feet off the air
pier. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so ridiculous. And the only other thing I want to say, and it's because, and then we can wrap up unless you want to add something, is like any other good movie with the jail scene at the end, much like The Hidden, we get Danny Trejo in a jail cell for about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Which is always kind of funny.
Never a bad thing.
Can't be mad when that pops up. Would do for more Danny Trejo, but we'll take what we can get. You got anything you want to add, or you want to kind of wrap up on this?
Then you're in for a big treat, bro, because it's hot dog time.
So for me, you might not believe it, but I do actually have fun with this movie. Like, I feel like I was kind of meaner to this movie than most of the movies that we've talked about this month, because it is kind of gross and sleazy and quite often feels like I shouldn't be watching it. That said, there's just enough like Bronson shenanigans to kind of make me laugh, which includes jump kicks, cranes, shooting things randomly, Danny Trejo for a split second, and hot dog assaults. I feel like we've been a steady decline since 10 to Midnight. Like, I don't think that's really debatable as far as, I mean, all two of them since then. Of the movies we've talked about this month, I think this is probably the weakest of the four. That said, I think it's still a relatively entertaining movie. And as long as you can deal with this level of sleaze, it's got enough Bronson and canon things that will make you kind of be like, all right, I can still have fun with this stupid movie. But if you are sensitive to the whole, like, you know, sexual assault thing, or I don't know, children being forced to be prostitutes.
Oh, that whole thing.
Yeah, that whole thing might not be for you. So this, I'm giving it a half for that, because this is more so than Death Wish, believe it or not, a very buyer beware type movie. Like, you have to kind of know what you're getting into, but it's still, again, for me, I've watched it twice in the last year, apparently, like, and I don't feel bad about that. I don't know that I'm going to go back and watch it again anytime soon, but I could see, like, the next time I'm in a binge for Bronson, it's probably going to find its way in there. So,
did you give a hot dog?
I don't know. It's a half a hot dog.
Oh, okay.
Did I give it?
I don't know. I didn't think you did, but all right. Yeah.
Whose hot dog is this? Huh? Is it yours?
All right. So for me, like I said before, this movie has a really interesting theme, and I'll restate it. Basically, in the 80s, Japanese had a big economic boom. They were buying up a lot of properties, and people got paranoid. They thought that there was going to be this big Japanese takeover of the United States. And I think it's interesting that this movie, while it's a gritty movie about, you know, prostitution and child human trafficking and all that stuff, it still explores some of that subject matter. And I think that's kind of interesting for a Bronson movie that really, you know, nobody's watching a Bronson movie to have any kind of cognizant thought. You know, it's like, oh, I put the thing on, things explode, Charlie Bronson shoots people, and that's the end. So I think it's interesting for that.
All as well.
Yeah. I think it explores, you know, some of that subject matter, and it's dark, it's gritty at the same time, but there's so many, and again, a movie about child prostitution and human trafficking. Take this with a grain of salt. There are a lot of fun scenes where Charlie is basically, you know, he's just the executioner for any crime that he comes across in the movie. And when he actually gets called out for something, which is very little, it seems like it's just a cops will be cops attitude, and he just gets yelled at for a second by his commanding officer, and then it's back to business as usual. But, you know, I think this is a great movie to conclude Bronson month. It's, again, dark, gritty, but fun at times, fun at the same time, and full hot dog. I mean, it's not the best of the things that we watched this month, but it was still, I still had a good time with it. I still was able, you know, it's an easy watch. It's not, even with all these deep themes, it's not that deep. But like you said, if it's something you're sensitive to, these types of themes, I would steer clear of it. But if you're just down to clown with Charlie Bronson, then this is a pretty good one for that.
So yeah, that concludes Bronson month, I guess. Closing thoughts on the Bronson?
For me, I just hadn't seen a lot of his movies. So it was, I mean, I'd seen Death Wish. I'd seen Death Wish 2, maybe 3, but I hadn't seen 10 to Midnight, and you had kind of mentioned it before, and never saw Murphy's Law or this one. And it was a good month. Like, I don't know if I would necessarily go back and watch his early stuff, but I think that we knew what we were getting into by looking at all of his canon stuff or some of his canon films, and like, oh yeah, this is going to be just a bunch of ridiculous fun. So it was a good time. It's one of the few times I think where we've had movies back to back to back to back where I felt like I kind of knew what I was getting into, even if I didn't know what the movie was about. And I knew that there was going to be some kind of redemption, some kind of ridiculous, funny, redeeming thing that would happen in all these movies.
Yeah, so for me, like, the only one of these that I hadn't seen before was Murphy's Law. I thought I had, but I'm not sure I had in retrospect, because they do tend to blend a little bit together. If I were ranking them, 10 to Midnight by far is like the top of it. Death Wish is right below it. And then you could probably flip Kinjite and Murphy's Law to some extent, depending on mood. But, you know, the kind of mood, like, I don't know if it's canon films. I don't know if it's this era Bronson films, or it's both. I just like shitty movies where people do shit like this. Like, I have fun with it. So this movie for me is like 100, or this month for me is like 100% in my wheelhouse. I feel like I said the same thing when we did Busey month, except we found a movie where he was a dog for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't even remember why at the moment. Did he die or something? Whatever.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, we won't get into it. go watch Quigley.
Yeah,
Or
do that.
listen to the
It's an Oz
episode.
Perkins. It's got Oz Perkins.
Yeah.
So, in the biodome. Anyway, there's part of me that kind of feels like we watched the same movie 4 times over the course of a month.
Yeah.
Like to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
But for this particular actor, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I feel like if we're pretty much any other actor, the only person I can think that might be an exception that get over that with would be if we did like all Norris films of like the violent Norris, not just the kicking Norris. Like I don't care as much about Chuck Norris kicking things, but Chuck Norris shooting things is fine enough. So, hey, final thoughts? You want me to just wrap this up?
Just wrap it up, John. Come on.
Springer.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it, Jerry Springer. All right. Well, okay. Well, that's all we got for this month. Bronson month has been a blast. But sorry, Bronson, get the fuck out of the way. Crummy Movie March is right hot on your heels, and we know that we love us some Crummy Movie March. If you've listened to a couple other shows that we've been on recently, you might already know the theme for Crummy Movie March. I'm not going to tell you right now. Go listen to WTF Are You Doing Pod. I know it's on there. It might be on a couple other things. Not sure. And we'll be back soon to talk about some crummy fucking movies. In the meantime, if you want to follow us, you can do that on all the social medias. We're at Dewey Podmonster. You can also follow us at our site, which is craft.town, as well as our network site, which we are proud members of the You Run Podcast Network. You find all of our old episodes there at yourunpodcast.com. Also, do go check out one of the other shows while you're there. And to coincide with Crummy Movie March, we also have a big announcement coming up that's going to be starting next month. So please do keep your eyes on that. If you're watching on YouTube, keep your ears on that. However you do it, pay attention. We're going to be talking more. Sean, what am I forgetting?
Yeah, I was going to say anything that we've talked about on this show will be linked in the show notes, and we're going to try our goddamn hardest to make sure that it's free for you to watch. You know, we're going to link it if it's on Tubi, if it's on Internet Archive, if it's on YouTube, if it's on Pluto, or any of those places you can watch for free. We're going to link it there. And I don't know of any other show that links so much stuff for free for their audience to watch that they talk about. But if it's not free, it'll more than likely be on Amazon. If it's going to be on Amazon, it'll say Amazon after it in parentheses. If you click those things, those are affiliate links. If you go there, you click something, you buy something from those affiliate links, we get a small cut. That's a great way to support the show. Another great way to support the show is telling a friend. You don't like a friend and you're like, yeah, I don't like you anymore, but these guys talked about Charlie Bronson for a whole month. You might like that. Tell them about it. The other way is if you want to leave a review on the podcast platform of your choice. That helps the show. It helps bring some visibility to the show and lets us know that you care. Other than that, if you want to follow me on social media, you can find me at Blue Sky exclusively at internalbleeding.crap.town. And I post stupid clips and sometimes other stuff, and not very often, but you know, every once in a while you might find something you like. But yeah, that's what I got. And you can follow us, as John mentioned, on Blue Sky at crap.town or at our website, crap.town. Back to you, John.
That's it. You know what this month's all about? When a man does a whole month of Charlie Bronson movies, his knife is his penis. Swell up, boat horns. We'll see you next month.
When a man's done a whole month of Charlie Bronson movies, he has to take a shit.
Yes, the shit is watch out.
Yeah. Ow, my hemorrhoids. Oh, yeah.
Bird season's over, Butthorn.